Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
And we get the back view of him. And I mean, it's just a mega.
52 yards is a long shot. Magnum PI, what we named him. No idea.
Just a magnum.
Yeah, just a magnum.
Come on, Cam, last year, we said probably 150, mid 150.
Yeah.
Same doe from the morning come out with that 9-pointer.
Here steps out this 90-inch 8-pointer. You're like,
I'm like, okay, well, there's still a buck back there grunting.
Yeah.
And then out steps like another 90-inch 8-pointer. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, deer, right there.
Yeah, like
and he's already
yards.
30 yards.
Yeah.
He was literally 5 yards from the base of the tree. Could have been, had a buck down at 1:40 in the afternoon, back there deep on public. 3 does come out pretty early. It was like 245, 24-yard shot, sent the combat veteran, and I tell you what, man, dude, it just smoked. We always get so jacked up when the other person kills. It's just almost like we got it done.
Yeah. And when you killed that doe, I was like, hell yeah, man.
And we come down here to Missouri.
I asked Comey one more time. I'm like, is it a good buck? And he goes, yeah, real good, solid buck. I'm like, all right, boom. And the deer just drops. Sure. Super special to me.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy. Baller Rut.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes hard as AF with the early season attack with Jake Bush. If you guys don't know who Jake Bush is, he is an absolute stone cold early season killer. Moved to Ohio, killed a buck his first year in, second day of season, jumped that deer, went in there and put the pieces together, made it happen. A lot of tactic talk in this to how to get it done early season. We dive into kind of a broad spectrum of what he does, and then we break down individual things that makes his success combine to the overall outcome. A lot of good content in this. Early season is someplace that me and homies struggle. We've killed a couple bucks there, but it's something that we want to get good at because who doesn't want to have a buck down the second week in a season, like just chilling out there, feeling really good about it. And you're going into November like high as hell because you got a buck down. But if there's a guy out there that knows how to get it done in October, it's Jake Bush. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode. We're going to get into the people that make this possible, and then we're going to get into the show. We're going to start off with Last Breath, guys. The launch party is literally like in 2 freaking days. So if you're on the fence and you're like, man, I'm going to full send it, let us know. We'll bring tickets with us, and we will get you in the show. Huge shout out to all the people that are coming from hella far away. We're getting messages, sending tickets out to Virginia and Pennsylvania and Mississippi. Just insane that people were traveling that far to come to the show. But the amount of shit that they're giving away is ridiculous.
Yeah, if you guys are not a part of the Last Breath Inner Circle on Facebook, hop in there. And Cody and I can even approve you to get in there, and you guys can see some of the shit that they're going to give away. It's going to be one hell of a party.
Yeah, I mean, a parachute. Like,
oh, yeah.
Dude, that's worth the drive. Like, if you won the parachute, you'd be driving home like, woo!
You'd be driving home even keeled.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't waste no gas.
Didn't waste no gas, no money. This has been legit. But, yeah, just giving away an absolute ton of stuff. Like I said, that Last Breath is just humbly giving out because people follow them and watch their content. So pretty badass. All right, let's get into Exodus. What you got?
Yes, this week for Exodus, we're going to talk about Velvet Fest, something that comes around every summer. And I look forward to it because we get to get cams out and get hopefully some big bucks on cam. So this year, Exodus is really going to sweeten the pot for everybody here. So from July 21st through August 11th, they're going to have a lot of awesome prizes for everybody to get entered in on. All you got to do is use hashtag VelvetFest on social media. And if you're also in the market for a trail camera, every single camera order, that's right, every single camera order comes with a random prize card that you have to scratch off to reveal the prize. I've been told there's some big deals, so you guys aren't going to want to miss out on that. Every single order. And this is awesome. To sweeten the pot even more, they have a limited edition hashtag VelvetFest laser engraved camera. So if you are the lucky recipient of that camera, you're going to receive a $1,000 gift card to the Exodus store. Yeah, a $1,000 gift card to the store. So there's a lot going on here. Head over to their website, ExodusOutdoorGear.com, and scoop you up a camera. Use the hashtag VelvetFest on your socials, and go ahead and scoop up a cam, because these cameras are legit and they are backed by a 5-year no BS warranty.
All right, you got the Bow Hunting League.
Yes, just to remind you guys, there's over 50,000 in prizes, and these guys just wrapped up a show in Alabama last weekend. So if you guys got to go there and check them out, this is also the biggest free bow hunting tournament out there. Totally free to get in there. All you got to do is go to bowhuntingleague.com and get your 3-man team signed up.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of teams this year, and it's fun to see all the big bucks start to get slammed in there and get you motivated to get out.
Tennessee Velvet's coming.
Yeah, you get to see all that going on. But you got Next Level this episode.
Yeah, some discussion has been brought up about the roasted soybean block, so I thought we'd just kind of do a nice highlight on it. The roasted soybean block is a very high-quality product, and it's put together very densely, so it's very compact, and it's going to withstand the weather out there. We've had a lot of rain here in the summertime in Illinois, and this block would hold up to the amount of rain that we've had. I heard a story about a roasted soybean block getting rolled into a small creek, and it was still holding together. And then there was also another story where a block withstood 5 to 7 inches of rain in a very short period of time, and it was still holding together. So if you guys want to check that out, you can check that out at nextleveldeer.com.
Yeah, watch out for the coons.
Yeah, the coons will jack that.
They do have a elevated holder for that.
Absolutely.
Also that I've seen. That was pretty sweet. So,
this is something I've been wanting to shout out for about probably 15 episodes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 15 weeks is an ass load.
Yeah.
The links to all the websites and everything that we cover in this intro, Last Breath's YouTube channel, links on there, Exodus, Bow Hunting League, Next Level, Underwarmer, anybody that we cover here, it's all going to be in the description of the episode on whichever app platform you are listening on. And whitetaillegacypodcast.com on there if you want to pick up a shirt or a hat, something, sticker, decal.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of stuff on there if you want to check that out. So now that I got that out of the way, finally,
we can get into the show.
Only 15 weeks.
Yeah, we can get into the show. All right, guys, you guys are going to enjoy this. Get your pen out and learn how to kill that buck early season. All right, we got Jake Bush on tonight. He's gracing us with his presence on the ride home. We appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I reached out to you. An absolute killer early season, and we've killed a couple bucks early season, but that's something that we are lacking, it seems like. So, especially this time of year with it's so crazy. I don't know if it's the same around you, but July 4th hits, and it's like a different world for people that whitetail hunt. No one's thinking about whitetail like maybe 10%, and then July 4th hits, and then it's at least 40 or 50%. People are like, oh, yeah, deer season's coming.
And like the hardcore guys are just like almost wide open.
Yeah. I'm on the edge of being just full bore right now. Are you there?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. No problem. We know that you're driving through a rough patch here. We're going to get through it, though. But did you hear what I was saying about you being an absolute stone cold killer for early season?
Yeah, I got that part, and I heard you about the July thing, too, with everybody ramping it up. And you know what? And at least around here in the bean fields, the giant bucks are out feeding early, and you can drive around and find them. And seems like everybody starts to get the itch. But yeah, the 10% or maybe even like the 1 or 2% of those guys, you know, it's wide open, full throttle all year round. And that's what really makes that early season game plan too. You know, we'll get into that a little bit more, but
yeah, definitely. But just for the people that don't know you or haven't heard you on a podcast before, go ahead and give them a quick rundown of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Jake Bush. I am just pretty much all you guys listening to this show probably, I'm a whitetail addict. You know, I've been at it a long time. I remember grabbing my dad and grandpa's bucks out of the back of trucks when I was 2 or 3 years old, and I fell in love with it. It's something that I've just, you know, grown up around, and I've just evolved throughout the years into really a mobile hunter and a very aggressive mobile hunter. I consider myself extremely aggressive. And, you know, over time that's just evolved and got to the point where it is now. I up and moved away from New York a couple of years ago to chase whitetails in Ohio on public land. And it really came down to the fact that I was killing some really good bucks in New York, you know, 4 or 5, 6-year-old deer. And I was killing them early, you know, like a day or two into season or 3 days into season. And I just wanted to up my game. I wanted to go after some bigger deer. So I sold my house, quit my job, moved to Ohio on a whim, and here I am, man, chasing bucks.
Nice, man. We've talked to a couple people that just went full send on whitetail like that. It's always epic just to think, man, I'm just going to sell everything, roll out, and just go somewhere where there's bigger deer. That's what everybody seems to do, though. It's pretty badass, man.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it too is, you know, like I tell everybody that is on the fence, because I talk to a lot of guys that are like, hey, you know, like I'm looking for that extra push to make that leap, and you know, say you up and sell everything and you move and you change your life for it. Well, when you get to where you need to be, you just build that foundation back up around itself, but now it's built around whitetails. So, you know, my job's built around whitetails. The location of my home is built around whitetails. Everything revolves around that, which makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, man. If you can revolve everything around what you love, that's the way to do it, man.
The best way to live. Man.
Yeah, that's the best way to live. So
when does that season open up there in New York?
So New York, it opens up. It used to open up October 15th, which is pretty late, but in the last, I'd say 7 or 8 years, it's been October 1st. It might even be 10 years now. It's been a while, but it's October 1st now. So I get another 3 or 4 days down in Ohio. You know, Ohio is like the last week of September.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Like the last Sunday in September is when it always opens.
Yeah, we're in Illinois here, so it's the October 1st all the time. And we're always like the 28th of September, set 27th, 28th, always a daylight shooter on mobile cam.
You're like, well, I missed him for the next week.
Going into the food plot, we're always like, well, there they are every year. Perfect. So crazy what 3 days of do to you. But you moved to Ohio. You had really good success in New York. You moved to Ohio right away. You started killing really nice bucks first year down there. So definitely, I mean, you're changing kind of the completely different ground, completely different deer on public and still getting it done. So we wanted to have you on and just talk about your early season attack. What are you doing throughout your year, going up to right now, and then, you know, going into season? What is your game plan step by step for someone that says, man, maybe I got a week I can take early season, but I don't have any time in the rut or something like that, something that's really got to roll the dice early and try to make it happen?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, I have a year-long strategy, but I'll use the same strategy for this that I used when I moved down here. You know, I moved to Ohio June of 2019 with no previous experience on any of the public land here at all. And so for me, what I did is I broke it down on maps. You know, I've had a lot of guys argue this with me as well. They say, well, there's bucks all over the hills, and there is, but you can find ways to put yourself in better situations and to up the odds around more mature bucks. For me, Windward ridges, you know, do bucks bet on the windward ridges? Absolutely. But the majority of big bucks bet on leeward ridges. So leeward ridge, for really breaking it down basic, is going to be any ridge that has the wind blowing over the top of it and then down that ridge. So say you have a ridge that runs east-west, that ridge where the wind blows from the west to the east, the bucks bet up there because they can not only smell the wind blowing down the ridge behind them, but they can smell the thermals rising, and they have an elevation advantage as well. So they have a lot of things going for them. So what I try to do is I break it down to the leeward side of all of these ridges, and then I try to find the ridges that have the most diverse habitat. I'm looking for clear cuts. I'm looking for ridges that have multiple points jutting out for different winds, and I'm trying to put those pieces together with destination food sources. You know, I'm looking for nearby ag fields on private. I'm looking for big oak flats. I'm looking for anything that can hold a mature buck in that area, and preferably more than one. Once I locate those on a map, I'll pick out, let's say I pick out 50 of those spots in a season. I'll go put boots on the ground in every one of those locations. And from that point, I'm really trying to fine tune it. What's the sign in there? Is there big tracks? Is there cover? Is there low hunter pressure? What kind of food sources do I have? Where exactly are the beds at? I find on a year, I put 500 miles boots on the ground. I'm finding thousands of beds, but I'm filtering that down to the best 10 or 15 beds I can find and going from there. So I'll filter down all of these areas, through scouting, through boots on the ground, and I'll filter it down to 4 or 5 spots I really want to focus on. What I'll do with those spots is I'll find the exact beds. I'll find the destination food source, and I'll try to find, like, I call them like basically the first food source they get to. So they'll have a destination, which is the goal that they want to reach at the end of the night. But on the way there, what are they feeding on? Are they browsing on briar patches? Are they just milling around some, undergrowth on the ground? Is there a white oak tree that's alone close to bedding? And what I try to do is I try to locate the food sources that are the closest to bedding. The ones that are within 150 yards of those beds are the important ones. I hear all the time that a buck goes nocturnal on somebody, and I really don't believe in a nocturnal buck. Every buck is laying somewhere all day long. You just have to figure out how to get close enough, which brings up my other point as well. I'll find a lot of really big bucks. I'm talking Boone and Crockett level bucks in Ohio that I can't hunt efficiently because they're in almost too perfect of a spot. So you need to find the dumber deer as well, the deer that have weaknesses in their setup, and then you can expose them as efficiently as possible. So I'll locate all of that. I'll put out trail cameras in that area. What I'm generally trying to put trail cameras on is like a hub scrape. So down in the bottom of a lot of these ridges, if you have enough points that jut out in different directions, you will have a scrape down below, and that's for all the bucks that have been on those ridges to check on each other. It's a great spot to put a camera for intel. I'll get a lot of inventory off those. I had the first camera I ever put out in Ohio was on a hub scrape. I checked it. I put it out in June. I checked it in July, and I had 14 bucks on that camera on public land. So they hold a ton of good deer. Once I do that, once I have that camera location nailed down, I have some other trails and food sources. I have cameras on those. It's really a matter of glassing that area and then waiting until mid-September to check those cameras and formulate a game plan early season for those bucks. So I'll filter through all the pictures I get on my cameras, and I'll filter down specific wind for that day. So I'll get on like Wonderground. I'll start going through, I got a picture of this 170 on public on this northeast ridge on a day that there was a southwest wind. Well, bam, I know exactly where he's bedded. I had him on coming off this other ridge on this trail 5 days this summer. Oh, all of those days were a north wind. He's bedded on that side of that ridge on a north wind. You start putting all the pieces together. And when those pieces come together, you start really realizing how these bucks move, what their game plan is, and you can get in there and you can basically expose that weakness and kill them early season.
When you're finding these beds, how far are they away from the destination food source on average, if you could make an average up?
Yeah, I got you. It's very situational. I find it's, I have a couple different styles of big woods that I hunt. I'll hunt very deep big woods where it's just, you're relying on basically oak flats as destination food sources. And then I also find a lot of public that's within, let's say, a mile of really good private ag, and they'll travel up to a mile. I've had them travel up to a mile to a destination food source. And, that really fools a lot of guys because they'll see a buck coming out in a field every night, right? Or they'll see him there in the morning. Well, how far is that deer really traveling? If you're seeing him in daylight, he's probably not traveling far. But if you're getting him on your cameras on that food source at night, let's say 11 p.m., he might have traveled a mile and a half already to get there. So it's very situational. Ideally for me, I like the destination food source to be, it seems like most of my area is set up at least a quarter mile away from primary bedding.
Yeah, that's something that we are figuring out too. The more we mature as hunting and the more intel we just collect as deer is. In the past, I'm thinking there's no way this deer is going a mile a day to eat, but we see that all the time now, like
Now-
repeatedly.
I would say now a mile almost seems like nothing
a
to
mile,
compare
yeah.
to what we know.
A mile and a half. We see him just repeatedly go. We see bucks go a mile and a half, hit a scrape, turn around, and go back. Like, it's just crazy that these deer. For some reason in my mind, I'm like, why would they leave? Because they got everything they need back here, but they're just cruising around, probably bored like we are, just out there like, oh, let's go check out what's up here. It's dark, I'm safe, But that's something I feel like a lot of people, like you said, they get a picture of a deer at night on the ag, and then they hunt that ag thinking that they have a chance at this deer when more than likely they would never have that deer in daylight unless he's on a doe or something random happens, But if they went in a quarter mile into the timber, they might have that deer daylight every day, like you said. I don't really believe in a nocturnal buck either. I've killed them directly out of their bed in October. When I always striked on a cold front though, or when a front was coming, when I went in on those beds. But we see bucks in October. It just seems like we can't ever get on them and get close, and I think that is probably because the lack of knowing where they're bedding, and that's something that seems like you're keying on. So when you say you're picking out 4 or 5 spots, what's making you throw all those 100 different spots away and picking these 4 or 5 spots you're going to really target?
So the number one thing is it's got to have multiple mature bucks in an area. Like I'm looking for areas that hold multiple 4, 5, 6-year-old deer in that spot. And they also have to be killable. Like I said, I find a lot of spots that have a lot of good bucks or some really giant bucks, but it's like wide open timber and they bed up on top of a knoll, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to kill that deer. I want something that's got a lot of cover. I want it to have very defined travel routes and really just put myself in the best situation.
Yeah, I think that's a super solid tactic. Just because we seem to hunt deer that are like really hard to kill. We know that they're like roamers and they travel a big corridor, but we just get emotionally attached to them. And you're just going with the odds. You're like, okay, good deer in here, but more than likely I'm not going to be able to kill them. We need to find a different spot.
Which is, I think, this year kind of going to be our tactics going in. Is like get a deer on cam, and we know about the next 24 to 28 hours, you're going to have another shot at him, because he's in the area.
Yeah.
And it's just hunting them better odds, more than just trying to be at the same place at the same time.
I feel like someone sees one giant buck in an area and they're like, oh yeah, this is the spot. But like you said, that deer could be seeing you walking in every time you're hunting and be gone, and you're wondering why you're never seeing that deer. So playing the odds in your favor by just picking not only the biggest buck or the one you want after, but the most killable buck, I think is a super smart tactic, especially early season. I mean, you have to hunt deer that are working, that are doing the early season
on your
thing.
property, daylight on your property.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to be close to them. That's the early October. The game is being close. All of my setups, I would say the absolute furthest that I would probably be from a deer early October. I don't like to put numbers on it, but I would say probably around 150 yards. But I really prefer to have locations that are thick enough that I can be within 60 to 80 yards of that bed when I'm setting up my stand. So it's all about being close. I've killed my 3 biggest bucks to date were the first 3 days of season over 90 degrees. And the reason being is they got up and they only had to travel, 30, 40, 50 yards max before I had an arrow in the side of them. And so that heat doesn't matter at that point. Nothing matters when you're that close, when you're right on top of them. So that's the other side of it. You have to really, if you want to be really consistent early season, you have to put the work in to know where the beds are at and to know how to target those specific beds.
Yeah, and someone listening to this might think, oh, there's no way you could get that close to a bed, but then we've done it, and we're not the sneakiest, most quietest hanging people out there, and we've done it and got in the bed and you can hear the buck coughing. Like, you're like, oh yeah, he's in there. He's just got to come this way. So you don't believe it, but then you do it like 3-4 times. You're like, oh, it can be done. Like you said, you just have to have the right circumstances and it's got to be thick enough. You got to have the wind. You got to have the access to get in there. But that's like you said, you're super on the edge. You're super aggressive. And that's something we've been working on for the last 3 years.
Yeah. I was just going to say, to add to your point there, is one thing you're going to have in that early season is you're going to have that foliage to kind of knock down your noise. And then if you're hunting the wind like you probably should be, it's going to be blowing away from that deer's bed. So that's even going to help you even more. And then if you just try to even be a little bit sneaky, which I know sometimes it's hard to do when you carry as much shit around as we do, if you just try to be a little bit sneaky, you aren't really that loud. And next time you're out there in the timber or something, like, go out there with a buddy or somebody and just have them like walk and look at how far away he is until you can't hear him anymore. I know a deer can hear a little better than we can, but still same thing. Like, it's not very far unless you step on like a giant stick, giant dead stick, and then it cracks, But for the most part, you're going to be in there and just be a little bit ninja, and you can get pretty dang close.
Yeah, you really can. And, it comes down to fine tuning your gear as well. I'm really not much of a gear guy. I rely on my mental well-being, my, like what I bring to the table personally. But as far as gear goes for me, I'm very particular about how good I am with my gear and how quiet my gear is. I tape the crap out of absolutely everything. I mean, I literally stealth strip all my sticks, my stand, and everything to the point where you can't see them. And I'll take a fillet knife for fish, heat it up with a candle, and cut like grooves in all the tape so I have holes through my stand and sticks again. I mean, I tape my release, I tape my camera arm. Everything I have does not make a sound at all. And if it does, next time I go back to the house, I'm fixing it. And that's, when you're that close, one pop, one squeak, one metal clank, anything, all that work you just did all summer, all that work you put into that hunt is junk, is ruined. So you have to be perfect. And a lot of my setups, like there's this craze out right now where I see it all the time on social media, and I really don't get involved with conversations on there about anything to do with this, but guys are like, oh my, like I can set up 20 feet high in 3.4 minutes. Like I'm flying up a tree. And I'm like, when I killed my 186 on public down here, I hung from the side of a tree for over an hour to hang my stand, because I wouldn't hang a stick and I wouldn't hang my stand until there was a really strong gust or until a squirrel chattered, jay sounded off. I was always looking for some sort of cover sound to cover me hanging that equipment. Like sometimes I'll hang on the side of a tree on a lineman's rope for 2 hours to get set up. Generally, I'll go in with a plan that it's going to take me 3 hours to get set up. Then that's walking in and setting up. For me, it's not about how fast I can do it. If I bump that deer, I have to be as quiet as possible to get up that tree.
That's next level right there. But when you're getting that close and you're hunting the caliber of deer that you are, that's what it takes, man. Like, and props to you for having that figured out and having the patience to do what it takes to get it done.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing though, man. Like, gear doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. It's all about how much time and effort you want to put into this, how hard you want to work, and how particular you can be. It's a chess match. How good can you get at that game of chess? And how can you keep evolving to make yourself better? That's all that really matters in this game at the end of the day.
I would say we're kind of the same way. Like, Cody just hung up a 8-9-year-old bow. The bow I had before my last bow, it was 10 years old. Like, we just like the shit that works and we're comfortable with, and like you said, good with it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You got to get good with your stuff that you got. You got to be really comfortable with it, because it don't matter how much you like, how good you feel about it until you're in that moment. It's got to just be instinctual. Like, you just got to be like, okay, I've hung this stand 10, 20, 30, 40 times. I know exactly that I need to hold it 3 inches low, and at this angle. And that's just stuff like you said, you just learn over doing it and putting the time in. And it's really hard to go out there your first year mobile hunting and smash a buck. Like, it's hard to have, I'm just going to start mobile hunting this year and go out there and kill, because like you said, setting up on them is half the battle, trying to get in quiet, especially when you're getting that close. But going back to, you said that you're running a scrape in a bowl like that. Are you finding a scrape that's already there? Are you doing any kind of mock scrape work, or what are you doing there?
So I'm looking for I call them community scrapes or hub scrapes. And what they are, what I find in hill country between New York and Ohio mainly, that's the two places I've really hunted a lot of hill country. And what I find is, say that you have a ridge, the main ridge system runs north-south, right? And then you have a bunch of like sub ridges that jut out to the east, and then those sub ridges have some ridges on them as well. What you want to get is like basically a bowl with a creek in it that's going to drain one way. So I'm on the leeward side. So generally that creek is either going to run to let's say the northeast or the east, or maybe even the north, but I want it to drain the way the wind's blowing so it can blow my scent out when I hunt it. If it's on the other side of the ridge system, you can go in there and there's going to be sign, there's going to be bucks over there. But if you're down in that hub and your wind's blowing from the west to the east, you're literally blowing your wind into your thermals, which is going to run up those hills, and the bucks are going to smell you. So that's the first thing to get started. But back to the scrape, I'm looking for scrapes that are natural. And the reason that they're natural is because they're used year after year in those locations for big bucks to check in on the other bucks. Like the majority of these hub scrapes I'm finding will be dug into the ground. It almost looks like somebody dug a hole underneath the licking branch. They'll always have a really defined licking branch, and it will also show like a lot of seasonal wear from other years. So if you can put all that together and find a scrape like that in hill country, the bucks, it's not just a rut thing. It's not an early season thing. I'll have, multiple mature bucks on those scrapes all year round. And people think I'm crazy, but I'll have bucks on those scrapes hitting the scrapes in daylight until they drop their antlers in, February, March, April, or whenever it is. And May comes around, they're starting to grow, and I already have those bucks on those scrapes again. And basically all the deer in that area at some point will hit that scrape, and you're going to have them on camera, and you're going to know exactly what's in there.
Yeah, that's the point that I wanted to put across. I think mock scrapes are awesome, but we'll walk along some field edges on public, and there'd be like 20 scrapes. And we're like, there's no way someone's in here making hella mock scrapes.
Yeah.
And I feel like people make mock scrapes just to like, I don't know if they're trying to think they're pissing the deer off or what they're doing. But I think if you make a mock scrape, it needs to be for two reasons. You're trying to get intel over a broad area, or you're trying to kill on the damn thing. One or the other. Like, make a mock scrape by where you plan on hunting, or by an area, like you said, where you want to get pictures. But if there's already a scrape there, nothing beats the real thing. We're not huge scent guys either. We normally don't put any scent in anything we use. We just let the deer do that. They've been doing it for years, so we don't need to put anything. Sometimes we might pee in it every now and then.
Yeah.
If we make a mock scrape
You gotta go
to light it up, But other than that, we're just letting the deer do the work. But I feel like that's something we see. I don't know if that's something you see out there where people are just making mock scrapes because the industry has made stuff to make money off them, or they think that it's going to change the outlook of their season if they have 4 or 5 scrapes leading to their stand. I don't know.
Yeah, and I see it too. And when you get in the right spot, you don't need to do that. I do have spots where I'll put out a mock scrape, but the only reason I'm doing it is, my main cameras will be on those hub scrapes, and every spot that I hunt in hill country has a hub scrape because I'm looking for like a checklist of 10 items, right? And if it doesn't check every one of those, it's like a secondary spot to me. I can put enough work in to find 5 of just slammer spots. But the reason that I put out some mock scrapes, the only reason for me is I'm really just trying to get the buck's attention to get them on camera. So I'll have a camera on let's say a secondary trail from bedding to windward Oak Flat on the other side, where I can see that he like jumps up over top of the saddle, or he goes around like a hog's back. A lot of times, if you don't have any way of catching their attention, you'll get like one picture of them, or you get like a really bad like angle. The only reason I put up mock scrapes is so I can get him to stop and turn his head a little bit. And I really don't hunt over them, because if I'm going to hunt over a scrape, I'm going to hunt over that hub scrape. I'm really just trying to figure out, is this buck a 140? Is he a 160? What is he, and is he worth pursuing or not? If that makes sense.
Yeah, we do. We do the same thing. We like to run cams on already scrapes that are there, but if we do have an area like the scrape tree, there's normally a scrape there, but we normally there's normally a scrape that starts on the south side of the tree. We normally put one on the north side of the tree because our camera position gets better pictures from the north side. So we run the camera there on the north because we ran the camera close to the scrape and we realized that less deer were using the scrape the year that we did that. So we backed the camera off and more deer started using the scrape, and now they hit both. So if they hit the south scrape, the shot's kind of quartering too also. And then if they circle around and hit the north scrape, then it's like a 20-yard perfect, broadside shot. So there's ways. Mockscapes are definitely awesome tools, but like you said, you just got to use them. You need to have them for a purpose, not just, oh hell, I'm gonna make a mock scrape, over here.
One thing that I think it really helps that is what Jake said, is like that licking branch. Like when they pick out the spot for the scrape and it has a really good licking branch on it, there's going to be a lot of bucks that we've seen be on that scrape, and it's going to be usually a bigger scrape, maybe even 3-4 feet wide. Like, I mean, absolutely giant. We found two of them on the same bush last year. Absolutely giant scrapes, and like we're just walking by, boom, got our attention real quick, and then we had like a 5-minute debate on what we're going to do. So that licking branch, and just like you said, I feel like it's almost, when it's year after year, it's almost a little bit shorter than the rest of the branches from getting, little twigs snapped off here. They're nibbling on it. It's just slowly degrading after the years go by.
Yeah, 100%. I find the exact same thing. And the other thing I find too, if you get out of hill country and you start getting into like not only farmland, but like a lot of swamps and marshes. I used to hunt quite a bit of swamp and marshland. A lot of times I would find just a licking branch. There wouldn't be, you might have like some little tiny scraping activity there, but it's not like one of the big slammer scrapes you find in hill country down here. So there it was more about finding the licking branches. I would rather find a well-used like seasonal licking branch than a scrape that's the size of a truck hood without a licking branch.
Yeah, same here. Licking branches, that's where they're leaving all the scent. That's where those does are going to check. The fawns are going to be there. Everybody's going to go to that and put a little scent on that scrape. So I'm 100% with you there. Is find the ones with a good licking branch. You can tell, like in April, it's really hard to tell, oh man, this scrape is really beat up last year because this stuff's starting to grow back. Maybe there's leaves in it. You can tell if that licking branch was rocked hard. Like we got one on a cedar tree limb, and like they're like rubbing on the cedar tree limb, and there's like it's just a like a vine. It looks like a vine because it's one limb that it's on a cedar tree that looks like a vine because they've rubbed everything off of it, and that's like that. We're like, okay, this is and every deer on that property goes to that scrape. Every one of them, every deer we've ever had on that property been on that scrape every year. So definitely, like you said, really solid place to get intel.
Yeah, I find the same thing.
So we went through, you're going in, you're getting as close as possible. You're making sure your stand is as silent as possible. You're hunting these hub scrapes. You're pinning it down to 4 or 5 beds in the area. So when are you planning the strike on these beds? Are you going off of the cams? Are you going off weather fronts? Or are you just going in saying, hey, it's deer season, I'm going in? So what's your plan there?
So when I might have mistaken just a little bit. Like I'll have like 4 or 5 locations that have, I call one of my spots like a ridge system, like basically a hub system. So I'll find 4 or 5 of those, and each one of those will have like, it could be anywhere from 1 bed that's just absolutely killer to 15 beds that are all good, or like an entire bedding area. But so repeat that question one more time for me. What was the actual question there?
The actual question was, once you find these areas and you're getting ready to strike, what is your key to say, hey, I'm going in? Is it on the trail cams? Is it the weather? Is it the wind? You just go with where the wind was on that bed? Or are you going, hey, it's October 3rd, the wind's right for this area, I'm going in? Like, what's your go-to plan there?
So it really depends on the wind first for me. And, like when I go into season, last year I had on public down here, I had 15 bucks located on camera or glassing that were on public over 150. I had a couple in the 60s, and I had one or two that were touching 170, maybe a little bit more than that. So I'll pick a deer or a couple of deer that I want to pursue. Like say I'll pick let's say the top 2 or 3 that I'm willing to hunt based on the conditions that I need. And then the number one condition, hands down, is wind. If I think there's a buck bedded on a northeast facing ridge that's very consistent, that's going to come down to a white oak that has a scrape on it, I'm gonna hunt that spot because I think I can kill him. But if I have a buck that I know is bedded on a south facing ridge on north wind, and I get a north wind that day, and he's in like my top 3 or 4 bucks, I'm gonna go in after him. I'm trying to be really picky still, but I have to hunt the conditions before I hunt the deer. I'm not trying to hunt one specific deer very often unless it's absolutely huge compared to everything else. So once I get the conditions that I need, really for me, it's a matter of I'll go back through my camera intel on that spot. I'll try to figure out, on a west wind, I had him on camera here, and here, but on a south wind, I had him here. On let's say a really sunny day, I had him coming off this bed, but on a cloudy day with the same wind, he came from this direction twice. And that could be because the thermal pull's different and he wants a different advantage. That could be a lot of different factors, but I'm trying to put everything in my head, at least when I get in there. And one thing I really try to do, I try to go in without a destination in mind. So obviously the absolute final destination for me on that spot is over top of his bed, but I'm going to go in until I find the sign that's close enough to that bed that I think I can kill him on. So, I'll go in, say I walk next to a bean field, and I'm like, oh man, there's 3 scrapes here that are wide open. They got hit last night, but his bed is another 3/4 of a mile in. I'm going to keep walking. And a lot of times what I'll find, because I know where the bedding's at and I'm headed that direction, that sign gets better and better. And you start seeing rubs, you'll see another scrape. Bam, you just saw a big track. And, if it is absolutely lights out and you got some close beds, but you had another bed in mind, maybe you just hunt that spot that you have the hot sign because maybe for some reason he is bedded right there. But if you continue to find better sign as you go and that that's like the beds are back in that one ridge system, I keep pushing in until I get to that, I was talking about that secondary food source. I keep going until I find that secondary food source and the hottest sign I can within like 100 yards of his bed. And depending on cover, if I can get within 50 yards, I'm getting within 50 yards. I want to be as close to where in my head that deer is bedded on the hottest sign I can have. If I go in there and there's not hot sign, I'm going to just hunt the bed because I'm there. But, I'm not wasting my time in an area that really doesn't have sign unless I'm directly over top of a bed.
I feel like that's one of our biggest struggles is the deciding to when to strike factor. Like there's always, man, but the wind could be a little better, or it could be 10 degrees cooler, or it could be this and it could be that. But I think with you having an area picked out with multiple bucks and not getting kind of emotionally attached to one deer, that if something does happen, you're like, well, I'll just roll off to this buck. So having those back burner bucks, I think, is key, and that's something that we're going to do this year. We're covering more ground to where if something does happen, where we bump a deer or something's messed up or the deer's just not there, we don't keep going in and hunting them. We're going to make a plan to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
because I feel like we're always deciding, is this the time to strike? There's always that factor. So you're going off of, if the conditions are right, you're going in there. If the conditions are right and the trail camera data is looking like you should be there and it's 90 degrees, you're going in there. Like for us, I don't think we would do that. You know what I mean? And he's killing early and we're not.
Yeah,
so
on the buck.
Yeah, the buck. Yeah, he's going in there, it's 90 degrees and he's killing. That's something that we wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to have you on, because when people do stuff different than you and they're killing, that's when you learn. That's when you really start gaining.
And then like when Jake's talking, it's just like light bulb, light bulb, like why?
Yeah.
But then like you talk to people and they're like, oh, it's October, don't go there, you blow it out, then the rest of your year's gone, and then you're like, this guy's seen it. But then everybody's different. Everybody's got different shit going on. Everybody hunts different. Everybody's ground that they hunt is different, and the individual deer are different. So you just got to play it best case scenario, and like I said in the beginning, the best odds you got to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the big thing for me too is that aggressive mentality. You like when I go in, when I decide all of those things that we talked about a second ago, and I determine like, hey, I'm going to kill that deer. From that point on, in my mind, and now granted, I'm disclaimer, I'm wrong. Let's say 90% of the time, right? But in my mind, there is no doubt that I'm killing that deer that night. I feel like I like psych myself up almost, and that never goes away. I always have that feeling because I'm like calculating this in my head. Like I said, even though a lot of times I'm wrong, I go in there, I'm like, I'm killing this deer. I'm laser focused, man. I mean, I'm throwing milkweed the whole way in, making sure my thermals are right. I'm walking so slow. I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at for rubs, for scrapes, for a track somewhere, for any sign of that deer. I'm going in extremely calculated, and I'm going in very aggressive. And I always ask people, like I grew up this way a little bit where I had a lot of observation sits and I had a lot of waiting on deer. And I always like to ask people, like, have you ever wasted time during a season basically observing or waiting on the deer to come to you? And I'm assuming your answer is yes. I know my answer is yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Now on the flip side of that, so you've wasted time where you really probably didn't have any valuable lessons from like certain sits because they were out of the game, right?
Yeah, they're out of the zone. That's
Yeah.
what we like to call it. Man, you're out the zone, you're not learning anything.
Exactly. Now, have you ever had an aggressive hunt that you didn't learn something on?
When we're in the zone, there's always something that goes out the hot corner.
Yeah. So
like-
say that you're aggressive and you screw it up, right? Like you get too close or your wind gets wrong. You just learned so much. That's how you're going to evolve as fast as possible, by taking these leaps of faith, especially early season, and going in to kill that deer. Because I've done it for a long time now, and I've screwed up so many hunts doing that I've learned so many things at like a very fast rate because I have those encounters and experiences. Like last year I screwed up on a Boone and Crockett buck on public twice, 2 separate times, and I didn't kill him last year. But you bet your ass I know exactly where he's at. I know where he's bedded on that wind, and I'm going to do everything I can to kill that deer this year. And that learning lesson I had last year might be the reason that he dies this year. And if I would have sat back on a field edge and never seen him, I wouldn't have that valuable lesson to go in there and kill him.
Yeah.
That's probably the best thing I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
Like being aggressive and always learning something, because you're usually in the chips. You got some action going on, and
Whether something's winding you, or you spook something, or you see a small buck work through an area, you're in the zone where the deer are. You're not playing the edge where you're not going to ruin anything, and you might get some action. You're going to be in the action if you're in there where they're at.
Right.
Plain and
Yeah.
simple.
And you got a good chance of killing too. You're no matter, like it's all, to me, it's all pros. And that also comes from like the no fear of bumping deer. Yeah, I don't care. Like if I bump a buck, I will go kill another buck. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's where we need to get. We're always afraid. We're always like, man, if it ain't the time to be in the zone, it ain't the time to get in there tight and be after them. And that's why, I mean, we're always on the edge of killing our target buck every year, like right on the edge. And if we would have been 30 more yards in the zone, dead deer, like 30 yards, that's the buffer that's killing us. We need to get 30 more yards aggressive.
And it's literally like, all right, do we push it and go to that tree, or do we just hang back here and hunt this tree? And it's literally that far of a decision.
yeah.
Like, because we know we're in the zone, but it's just, where's
Like,
the kill tree?
Yeah.
Is what we need to dial in.
Yeah.
We're 30 yards off dialing in the kill tree.
Yeah. We need to go 30 yards further than we think we need to.
Yeah,
every
and,
time.
and push it. Just
We're like,
push
oh,
it.
this is where we need to set up. 25 yards set up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the big thing too is like, and maybe you guys do, but it really helped me a lot, is like, believe in yourself. Like when you guys go in, like you're going in to kill that deer. You're going to go kill that deer. Whatever it takes, you're going to figure out how to put an arrow through that deer. And when you have that mentality, there is no hanging back. You're like, I'm going to figure out a way to get to that tree up there, because that's where I'm going to kill that deer. I might be 1 stick high, I might be 4 sticks high, I might be laying in a freaking ditch, but that deer is going to die at that point.
Yeah, that's something that we don't do.
We say, like, whether we ride together or whether we show up at the parking lot together or at the driveway together, like, all right, act like you're killing tonight. And
Yeah.
we say that almost every hunt.
But then when we see Magnum,
the acts
we're like,
are different.
I don't know if that was him or not. You know what I mean? Like, you almost believe that deer is unkillable, even though you're like, oh yeah, we're in him.
Yeah.
You're like, and then you see him the whole time he's out there. You're like, I'm not sure if that's him or not. Then the whole time you look back at the footage. You're like, yeah, that was him. You just can't believe that was him, because you're like, okay, this deer's. Am I really doing the right shit? Like, am I really figuring this out? And that just goes off of years of doing it and realizing, hey, I'm, and that's something we realized this off season. We're like, we know what the hell we're doing. We just need to be confident every time we hunt.
I would say, just like Jake said, have the confidence in yourself. And I think after last year, and just like you said, like that's. We're getting there.
Yeah, we know.
We need to be there.
Yeah, we know we can do it now. It's like before, you're hunting this mythical creature. He's out there. You encountered him, and then you encounter him the next year. Like, if you encounter him once, okay, cool. But if you encounter him again the next year, like, you're getting on that dude. You know, we're building some confidence, and then this year we feel the best ever. Like, okay, we're in the zone every time. But see, I wanted to have you on because it'd get us thinking, man. We need, like you said, we have someone on that's aggressive, and we're like, all right, we got to be more aggressive.
We need to be aggressive.
We need to be more aggressive.
Every hunt.
Yeah, and that's that. You know, if you look at, like, I have my list of idols, right? Like, like Dan Infalt, Andre and Cody DeQuisto, Andy May, Johnny Stewart, Greg Litzinger. You look at those guys, and they're all, the one key thing is their confidence, and they're all very aggressive. And I think that's a big part of that strategy that helps out a lot. One thing I've done to kind of help that as well, that's kind of molded me a little bit. At first it wasn't on purpose, but I realized what I was doing over time. And it's actually something that I do a little bit. So say that you guys are going to run a bunch of cameras, right? And say that you find like 15 bucks this year, and you pick like the top 5, right? And you're like, oh man, we'll kill any of these 5, or we'll kill these 3. Go pick that 7 or 8 buck that say you get a buck on a hub scrape like 4 or 5 times, and you get the wind right, you get on Wonderground, you're like, oh yeah, look at this. Like, he was definitely bedded on that northeast point because he was here on a southwest wind. Like, there's no doubt about it. And there's a white oak down there, whatever it is. Pick that number 7 buck, go in there before season without equipment, obviously, but go kill that deer. Go bump him out of his bed, because if you bump him out of his bed because you knew he was there, man, you could kill that deer. And that builds up so much confidence. You just put everything together. You went in there and you saw the deer jump out of his bed and run off. So if you wanted to, you could have killed him. You know what I mean? Like, you can play this game outside of season. And
that's a badass tactic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Build that confidence of like, okay, I'm putting the pieces together. I think this is right. Let's go test it. And then boom, you bump that deer, or you do find his bed looking fresh. You're like, shit, man, I was right. He was here, you know? And that,
you had him. And I've done that tactic on big bucks. When I killed 2 years ago in Ohio, I bumped that deer out of his bed 2 weeks before I killed him. And when I bumped him, I mean, talk about the best intel. Like, I look up a ridge and there's a big rub. I'm scouting mid-September. There's a big rub. And then there's a scrape, and I start walking to the scrape, and he jumps up out of his bed on the ridge, and I glass him, and he was like, oh my God. But I was like, you know what? I put all the pieces together. Southwest wind, he's here. He comes down, he hits this scrape, which is directly under a white oak tree. I was like, this deer is dead. Like, if I get a southwest wind the first couple of days of season, you bet your ass I'm sitting right here and I'm killing him. And the first day I got that wind, it was the second day of season, I went in there and I killed him just like that.
Crazy. Yeah. Love that video too, man. Mm-hmm. Awesome job. Watched that just here recently. So
yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm definitely every episode I get more and more jacked.
I know.
Yeah, I'm just ready to rip.
This one here, man.
Ready to rip. But man, we appreciate you coming on, spend some time with us tonight. Absolutely crushed this episode. Hopefully got everybody else listening just motivated and jacked to be more aggressive and get in there and kill that buck.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, that is how you do it early season. Get in there, quick, effective, clean, kill, roll out, crack beers, October 4th. Like, that's the dream. That's where dreams are made right there.
Did you just call that? Did you call it?
No,
You call it? Huh?
I ain't calling nothing early
Yeah,
season.
shit.
You know what I'm going to
Oh,
call?
not early season,
I'm
all right.
sweating my balls off, seeing that 6-pointer. Crushing that.
Bro, he's got to be an 8 this year.
Nah, he's
gotta
gonna be a
he's got
wide
good,
6.
He's got good genes.
He's got
good
terrible genes. He was a
Blew
fork
up.
and horn the year before. He went to a
I
6-pointer.
don't know. We had 2 button bucks that year. He might have been one of the button bucks.
I don't
right
think so.
to a nice solid 6.
Nope.
Got to have faith. Be positive.
Be positive,
Be
yeah.
positive. I like a good couple nuggets in here though, and Jake's pretty
Yeah.
good.
You know, going in like you're gonna kill. Huge, man. Go in like you're gonna kill every episode, or every kill every episode. That's exactly what we do. Kill this thing right to the grave. None of the listeners are like, all right, this shit's over. Kill every time you go out to hunt. You know, go in like you're ready to just absolutely stomp a buck. You know, and
Nobody's listening here, so
yeah, no one's listening to this shit. But
wrap this up.
the people that are listening to this, we love you. We appreciate you listening, tuning in to this every week. Season's coming. People are starting to think about deer. The velvet bucks are out eating the beans in the evening times. The trail cams are firing up. The mobile cams are starting to start dinging your phone soon. We're
The-
shooting the bows in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, shit's getting crispy out
The
there.
deer talk is getting heated.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
getting slapping.
Whoa.
Shit is just out here getting slapping. But like we always say, we love you. Try to do the right thing and leave a legacy. And Whitetail Legacy is out until next week when you're coming in our ear hole. We're coming in your ear holes. We out.